Donald Trump on the phone today, weeks after blowing past the August 1st deadline for a trade deal. A readout from the Prime Minister's office says the leaders discussed current trade challenges, opportunities, and shared priorities in a new economic and security relationship between Canada and the U.S. The leaders also discussed how to build on the president's leadership to support long-term peace and security for Ukraine and Europe. The readout also says CARNEY and Trump agreed to talk again soon. Let's bring in the power panel to talk about this. Cameron Ahmed was head of communications for former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Amanda Galbraith was an advisor to former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And we're still waiting for Shachi Kurl, who's the president of the Angus Reid Institute, to get technically hooked up. We're having a few glitches, but we hope to have her online soon. Why don't I start with you, Cameron? The Prime Minister's office says CARNEY and Trump, quote, agreed to reconvene shortly. What's your take on this conversation?
Well, the readout you just shared with us is about the most generic a readout can be for a conversation like this, having written many of them myself. But look, the bottom line that I think we can take away from this conversation is it's good news. The fact that they're talking shows that the dialogue is happening. The fact that the foreign minister just met with her counterpart is also good news. When there's a long stretch where you don't see engagement between the governments, or you see just comments being made by proxies, comments coming on background to the press, that's where you start to worry a little bit about where the talks stand. But as we heard from the sources from the Prime Minister's office, the Prime Minister initiated this call. They're continuing the conversation. The dialogue needs to happen. And obviously, engagement is key. The Prime Minister has shown since the beginning of his tenure that he knows how to navigate these personal dynamics, but no matter how skilled he is or the team is, this is the most volatile situation for Canada's trading relationships in the world, and it's the most volatile it's been in a long time. So obviously, we'll have to see where this goes.
Amanda, I guess the question is, we had heard that they were sort of texting buddies almost early on, and then everything kind of seemed to go quiet for a while, and then the deadline passed. Will this call help blunt criticism of what sort of some described as of inaction by CARNEY on the U.S. trade file?
I mean, if this was a story of one of my friends trying to date someone, I would say he's not into you and it's not going well, is how I would have described it. I mean, I appreciate, it's good they're talking, that's right, but this is the lowest possible bar that we could put for a relationship between Canada and the U.S., and that is concerning to me. The last time they spoke publicly that I can find any record of is mid to the end of June. It is now August. We've had a trade deadline pass, and to Cameron's point, that was a very generic, candidly, uninspired conversation that took place. Maybe there's more stuff out there, but I'm not encouraged. I'm glad they're speaking to one another, but am I encouraged that he's got some magic wand to build with this relationship? No. Do I think that President Trump is a rational actor and easy to deal with? Absolutely not. I imagine it's incredibly challenging in the PMO, but regardless, Canadians are deeply anxious. There was discussions, we're going to have a deal. There may be something around the G7 meeting that went through. We've had multiple deadlines miss. Trade tariffs are now higher than they were when the Prime Minister came into office. And the discussion, all the noise that I'm hearing now is that Trump is going to blow up CUSMA. And that would be, I think, a wild thing for us to happen for this country. And I think that is a real political freight train running at this government.
Shachi, I think we have you now. We've obviously been talking about the phone call today between Donald Trump and Mark Carney. What are your thoughts on whether that was a long time coming and that might blunt some of the criticism that Mark Carney was facing that the call finally happened again?
Yeah, apologies. I can hear program now, but sorry if I end up saying anything that's already been said. I mean, I guess this is a proof point that they had a conversation. Yay, they're talking to each other. And there was criticism of the Prime Minister prior to this when it came out through different sources and possibly by his own word. I'm trying to remember where he said, oh, yeah, I talk to the president all the time. And people were like, what? Huh? We don't know about this. So in a way, he would have been up for some criticism if this call hadn't been disclosed. But really, we're having a conversation about the fact that they had a conversation. that does not appear to have led to anything. Now, at this stage, I would disagree with Amanda a little bit, only because the data shows us that there is still a fairly strong backing from Canadians in terms of not feeling the need to hurry up a deal, to wait for the best deal possible, and to defend the interests of Canada above and beyond rushing or panicking to get a deal, or suffering from the FOMO perhaps that the UK and the EU or Japan really took into heart and rushed their deals, only to maybe find out that maybe it wasn't all meant to be what it was. That said, what this does is it opens up a narrative on part of Pierre Poilievre to say that, hey, look, the criticism is there that we were not necessarily seeing progress. There is a level of anxiety and worry on part of Canadians around how long is this going to take, and at what point does Canadian patience run out in terms of seeing some sort of progress?
Well, you actually just gave me the perfect segue to change gears, because this week Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre cruised to victory in his Alberta by-election. But a review of his leadership coming at the party's national convention in January, could that prove to be a speed bump? Because, and Shachi will tell us all about this, new numbers from the Angus Reid Institute show that Poilievre still holds the support of Conservative voters. 68% say they support him as leader, but 54% of Canadians who considered voting Conservative but ultimately didn't end up voting Conservative want him gone. What does this mean for Poilievre as he approaches that leadership review in January? Shachi, we looked at some of the numbers there. What else stood out for you from this poll?
Well, I think it really continues, CARNEY, to underscore the challenge that the Conservatives have at this stage. Among their hardcore, diehard, true blue base, they're still with him. Yes, you go. You lead us into the next election. We're with you. Except for that about 20%, just under 20%, who are not sure that he should be the leader rolling into the next election. And what's really interesting about that segment, and remember, when it comes to popular vote, the Conservative versus the Liberal vote is really, it is, football season's coming up. It is such a game of inches, if not centimeters, and single percentage points. And so you have to look at where those Conservative voters who don't necessarily want Poilievre, where they would take the party. And it's very interesting because there's a split. Some of that group want Poilievre gone, even though they voted Conservative this time around, because they want to see the party move even more to the right. And so that runs counter and reignites the challenge that the Conservatives have around keeping the fringe or the hard right on side, where at the same time you have a significant segment of people who switched away, who drifted away from the Conservatives in the last election, and they may be all for seeing Poilievre gone, but where does the party go? Do they try to take more of the center and risk continuing to lose that hard right flank? That was their problem before the election. It continues to be their problem now. Or do they move back to the right, try and pick up some of that group, and once again suffer potentially the alienation of the center right? So this is the challenge, this is the problem, and there's also a problem of the Poilievre rebrand, which I'll address really quickly. He still continues to have likability issues. His likability hasn't improved despite the time that he had, the face time that he had on the campaign trail. If anything, people are more likely to have a view of him that is insincere, a view of him that they would not like to see him as Prime Minister. Now, granted, a lot of those people wouldn't vote Conservative to begin with, but a lot of them would. So he's not endeared himself to the population overall.
Amanda, 68% of Conservatives, according to this poll, Conservative voters still support him. Is that enough for him leading into that leadership review in January?
I think Pierre Poilievre is going to handily win the leadership vote in January. From talking to Conservatives, there are no concerns or risks to my mind that is a challenge for him. I think what we will see post, they've taken some time. I think he's reflected on what has happened in the last election, and I think you'll see as Pierre Poilievre comes out in the fall, he's back in the House. They'll find their feet and I think kind of pivot and talk about some different issues. Certainly, like Shachi's very good at what she does, right? And she's identified, I think, some challenges that Conservatives face, but we also need to remember at the end of the day, like, electoral politics are not popularity contests. People voted for Stephen Harper 3 successive times, including a majority government, and I worked for the man, and I can tell you right now, many times people told me they didn't like him, was like, I would be rich if I had a nickel for every single time that happened. But people liked him because they thought he was competent. One of the interesting parts about Shachi's poll is he gets 73% of Canadians think he is the best person to hold the government to account, which is what the opposition leader's job is. So I actually think there's a lot of growth there for him if he can kind of balance the attack dog with more of the policy-led principled conversations we want to see and some of those softer edges we saw in the campaign. So certainly there are learnings from this, and the Conservatives should take it seriously. I do not think his leadership is at risk, and I think people forget, but he led the Conservatives to the largest electoral showing we've had since 1980. Like, that is not a small feat.
Cameron, the Conservatives are up 20 points against your former boss, Justin Trudeau, and yesterday Poilievre called Prime Minister Carney's leadership worse than Justin Trudeau on deficit spending and broken promises. Is that a message Liberals should be concerned about at all as the fallout from the U.S. tariffs start to be felt more broadly here?
I mean, of course, the Liberals have to be constantly on their toes when it comes to the opposition. You can never count out the Conservative Party, and you shouldn't count out Pierre Poilievre's ability to be a clever politician. I think to what Amanda was saying, the lessons to be learned, people were saying that before the election, that he had to show a softer side, that he had to be able to demonstrate, of course, that he can hold the government to account, that he can propose alternatives, but that he can do so without being this belligerent and petty person that he often appears to be. And from just this week, his tone has not changed. I don't think he is capable of changing and reflecting a different side of himself that this polling and many other polls have shown that a lot of people want to see, like, especially in the context of negotiating this trade deal with the United States. People, of course, are anxious right now, and people, of course, expect results from the government right now. But they also remember what it was like dealing with the president in the first time around. Getting a deal is really hard. It takes poise, it takes patience, it takes cunning, it takes respect, it takes diplomacy, and I don't think Pierre Poilievre is contributing in any meaningful way to that conversation or demonstrating that he can be a value add in this Team Canada approach. So I'm not concerned that he could win his leadership review. The question is whether he can be in this time where everybody is paying attention and everybody wants to see the country united and all of our politicians working together, whether they're proposing different solutions or whether they agree with each other or not. But at the end of the day, are they supporting the same objectives? And I don't think that he has set himself up to be that person as the opposition leader.
Okay, so we're running short on time. So 30 seconds or less for each of you, starting with you, Amanda. The Commons returns later next month. They'll be facing off for the first time, Carney and Poilievre. What will you be watching for?
I'll be watching for the show between the two of them. I think it's going to be really amazing to see. I think you'll see the Conservatives really hold the Liberal government's feet to the fire on action. Where's the list of the special projects? Are there going to be shovels in the ground? Where is an alleged deal around trade? Are tariffs going to go down? I think there's a lot of promises and expectations being set, but the Carney government has yet to deliver, and I think that's where the Conservatives are going to go.
Shachi, really short. What are you looking for?
A lot of what Amanda's already pointed out. This is the big curtain reveal. What does the Liberal government have? What are they actually prepared to move forward on? And from my perspective, how quickly does that change public mood, if at all? Because right now they are with him. Even Conservative voters are with this government. Let's see how long that lasts.
Cameron, really quick, what about you?
Same thing for me, and whether the Conservative opposition is able to contribute in a meaningful way or whether they're going to stick with the approach that works well on TV and it works well for the clips on social media, but does it over the long term demonstrate a mature approach to the Team Canada united front that we all want to see.
Thank you all